President Lee Jae-myung is in India for summit talks with Narendra Modi, with discussions set to focus on expanding strategic and economic cooperation. The summit is about to get underway, beginning with an official welcoming ceremony hosted by Modi. And joining me here in the studio in Seoul today is Professor Rajiv Kumar. Welcome, Professor Kumar.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
So it's been 8 years since a South Korean president last made a state visit to India, hasn't it?
Yeah, this is very significant visit. As you mentioned that it is taking place after 8 years, so that is showing a political significance of this visit. But it's also coming at a very crucial time as we are witnessing a geopolitical uncertainty in global affairs. We are witnessing the Middle East crisis at the moment. We are witnessing energy crisis at the moment. We are also seeing intensifying US-China competition at global stage. International corporations are falling down. So this visit is really taking at a very crucial time in global context. But the more important thing is also about Korea's new recognition of India as a rising power.
Right.
So as yesterday, President Lee himself highlighted that India is a 1.4 billion population and a rising economy, going to be the third largest economy very soon. And most important thing is India's rise of geopolitical power at the world stage. So this visit is really significant from all these perspectives, from Korean perspective, from global context, as well as India's rise itself.
Well, I do have to mention, this is President Lee Jae-myung's first visit to India, but this isn't the first time Lee and Modi are meeting, right?
Yeah, they met a few times at global stage, but that meetings were not the bilateral one.
Right.
This is very significant because this is a state visit, and they will have more time to have in-depth discussion in India, and several meetings is scheduled today also. So I think this meeting is quite crucial in many ways because it's a state visit. So yeah.
Well, the thing is, a lot has changed since they last met. How significant, you mentioned this is significant, the significance of this summit is great, but how significant would you say this summit is this time, considering geopolitical tensions and landscape at this moment?
Yeah, it's a very important question that, as you mentioned, that currently the geopolitical situation is really transforming rapidly. We are witnessing also the rise of unilateral action, particularly led by United States at many years' place. We are also witnessing several issues like energy crisis, the rise of AI, both for positive and negative sides. And on top of that, we are also witnessing the rise of tariff war, protectionism. All these issues have really significant impact for both India and Korea. So this meeting is really crucial for all these contexts that happened last year.
The summit between Seoul and New Delhi cannot be more timely than ever. Then for our viewers who are not too familiar with the history between the two countries, how far back do Seoul-New Delhi ties go back?
Yeah, if we consider modern India-Korea relation, that is started by in Korean War, because India played a very crucial role during Korean War in 1940s, 1950s.
Right.
It was also important to notice that at the time when Korean War was taking place, major power in the region like United States, China, Russia, they were all seeking to gain political advantage in the Korean War. But India was the only major player at the time which was trying to push a narrative that Korea's fate must be decided by the Korean people. And India played a neutral role at the time and played a very big role as a peace keeper in this part of the world. But unfortunately, during the Cold War time, both were in different sides, so relation could not develop further. But again, in the 1990s, when Cold War ended and India started to liberalize its market, So new era began in India-Korea relationship because many Korean companies like Samsung, LG, Hyundai, they decided to enter India market at the time. And since then, several development took place. That was the second stage I can say about India-Korea tie. The third stage can be said by in 2010 when India and Korea both signed a strategic partnership in 2010, and they also signed CEPA in 2009. Right. And since then, several development took place between India and Korea. So that can be said as a third phase of India-Korea ties.
So Seoul-New Delhi relations go back about 80 decades, but it looks like it's been about 30 years that Korean firms entered the market in India. Now, how close are the two countries as trading partners now then?
Yes, in terms of trading partner, currently India-Korea trade lie around 25 billion. And India is also one of the top exporting destination for Korea, top 10 country. That is very significant development. But because if you look at until 1990s, for Korea, United States and Japan was the only major destination for Korean export. But after the rise of China in 1990s and after that, China became the top trading partner of Korea and main export destination. But recently, trade is shifting, and India and Southeast Asia emerged as one of the key trading partner for Korea. So trade relation is shifting, and I think India is emerging as one of the key trading partner of Korea. And as I mentioned, that the trade currently stood by $25 billion. That is very significant.
Right, you mentioned CEPA, which is a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. The two countries, with the two leaders today, they will be seeking to accelerate the negotiations on upgrading the trade pact with the goal of boosting bilateral ties to $50 billion by 2030. Professor Kumar, walk us through what CEPA is first.
CEPA is one of the key pillar of India-Korea relationship. CEPA was signed in 2009. To boost India-Korea trade and to allow both sides to do trade more frequently. And over the last, you can say, 20 years almost, CEPA is in operational. But there has been some issues about the CEPA, particularly Korea want to upgrade this CEPA. But India has certain issues on upgrading because India is more concerned about trade imbalance. So I think, but CEPA is very crucial between India and Korea.
So India is more concerned about trade imbalances when upgrading the trade pact. Then do you think those will be the sticking points between the summit talks between the two leaders?
I think that's going to be one of the critical point of discussion because as you mentioned that Korea want to upgrade, but India is reluctant to upgrade the CEPA because India is more concerned about trade imbalance. But definitely that is not the only thing. India is considering that if Korean companies are entering, if they are importing critical component from Korea, definitely India is going to consider that part very seriously.
Well, Professor Kumar, forgive my ignorance. What trade imbalances are you talking about exactly?
Trade imbalance is currently India is importing more and exporting less. So as you know that East Asian countries, they always stress on export and they develop by exporting items. So currently India is also having a strategy like Make in India, that things should be produced in India. And current trade deficit is not good for long-term good prospect of India. So of course, India is having big issue with China on that front. Right. Because China is the largest, trading partner in India, but also largest exporter in India. So, so India is considering to, redesign its trade relation with China and other main trading partner as well. So that in that context, India also want to have redesign its trade with Korea.
I see. Well, I'd like to stay on the export then between Seoul and New Delhi. What export items are India exactly shipping to Korea?
Yeah, generally India is exporting raw materials at the moment. On the other hand, Korea is exporting high-end products, electronic items. So, but as I mentioned, that India is also trying to boost its export, especially in electronics and all. So, India, first of all, they are more concerned about how to build these industries within India and then export them later. So, that's one of the area of concern for India, that how this trade imbalance is very crucial for India.
So negotiations on balancing that trade imbalances will be one of the major breakthrough at the summit today. Now, with over, as far as I understand, 600 Korean firms are operating in India, what would you say more needs to be done to improve a working environment for Korean firms operating in India?
Yeah, that's a very, very important question. Actually, I wrote an article last week in Korean media about what should be the future-oriented India-Korea partnership. And I mentioned that if you look at economic metric at the moment, currently there are only 500 to 700 Korean companies, SMEs working in India. But in Vietnam, if you look at Vietnam, more than 10,000 Korean SMEs are working.
I see.
So I think Korea must push more SMEs in Indian market. And I think yesterday, President Lee also mentioned this one, that this is our task, that we need to improve, enhance Korean SMEs and startup presence in India.
I see. Now, we are seeing President Lee Jae-myung and First Lady being greeted by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, it looks like a sunny day in New Delhi. Here it's about 26 degrees Celsius, but it gets as hot as 40 degrees Celsius in India. Is that correct?
Yeah, India is currently, it's a hot summer starting. So
already?
We are in Seoul, so it's very, cool weather here, but India is very hot, yeah.
Does it get also very humid, just like Korea?
Yes, but not that humidity, not that much high. Korea is because of the mountain region here in Seoul. Yeah, but hot weather is there. Yeah.
Well, it looks like a beautiful day in New Delhi, whereas it's kind of gloomy here in Seoul. Now, Korean national anthem is being sung to be officially greet the South Korean leader and the First Lady. The footages we are seeing now live is the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Am I pronouncing this correct? The presidential office or the official residence in India?
Yes, Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Okay, that sounds much better. Already, we are covering the live coverage of the official welcoming ceremony of the summit between the leaders of South Korea and India. And Professor Kumar, I'd like to continue our conversation on the upcoming summit talks. Now, how attractive would you say is India as a consumer market for Korean firms operating in India compared to China or Southeast Asia?
Yeah, currently India is trying to boost itself and trying to present itself as alternative to China. And for that, India is improving its manufacturing base. Particularly, India is investing in infrastructure so that foreign companies can come and operate in a great environment. India is also placing importance of ease of doing business in India. This current regime, Modi regime, is particularly more pro-business. So several things and several initiatives has been launched recently to enhance foreign companies' presence in India. And India also, as I mentioned, that targeting that companies which are looking for China plus one strategy, they should come to India. So India is really, really very important. And as I mentioned, that India 1.4 billion population and cheap market, also English-speaking country. Skilled workforce are there. As in Korea, we always talk about India is good in IT. So combining all, India is a great alternative for those who are looking alternative destination to China.
Right. India does have a lot to offer to South Korea.
Yeah.
Now, both countries will also be looking to strengthen supply chain resilience, which is extremely crucial considering the geopolitical tensions at the moment. What concrete areas of cooperation are most realistic between the two countries when it comes to supply chain resilience?
Yes, supply chain resilience is very important, and that word actually started after COVID-19.
COVID-19.
COVID-19 disruption, that caused many damage to supply chain, particularly semiconductor. Semiconductor become very critical issues during the COVID time.
Right.
India also faced huge shortage of semiconductor, and due to that, many factories shut down. So at that time, even India also came to realize the importance of this chip. So India also pushing strong stress on how to build supply chain resilience, particularly in these critical technology, and that is why India Semiconductor Mission was launched. And very interestingly, that India is inviting foreign companies, particularly from Korea, they should come and participate in building this India's supply chain resilience, because India wants to reduce its import dependence, particularly on vulnerable sources, that are not good relation with India. So India is building this supply chain resilience in critical technology, and I think Korea can be a great partner, because India is really looking towards Korea to come and build a strong relation in supply chain in critical technology, including semiconductor as well.
Making chips is no problem for Korea.
Yeah.
I'm sure we have a lot to share with India. Now, let's talk about energy security amid this global instability. How can Seoul and New Delhi collaborate on energy security, Professor Kumar?
Yes, energy security become very important issue, especially if we look at a Middle East crisis.
Right.
India also facing huge economic crisis in many ways. Korea also, one of the critical issues for Korea at the moment is how to resolve this economic security crisis. So both countries are, facing the same issue. And as President Lee yesterday mentioned that, he was in India, and one of the key issues is, energy security, how India and Korea can collaborate, because since both countries are heavily dependent on import of oil and gas from the Middle East, which are at the moment really unstable. So both need to find a way to cooperate and boost their cooperation in energy security. There are many areas where they can cooperate on energy security.
Then is it safe to say that our New Delhi partnership could help reduce its dependence on certain regions for key resources?
I think definitely they need to reduce dependence on key resources. One is, as I mentioned, that energy itself is a very important thing.
Really?
But other critical minerals are going to be important area that both need to think about it, because Korea is heavily dependent on China for critical minerals, and that is becoming big issue for Korea as well. So they need to think about how to reduce their dependence on raw materials.
Right. I'm sure the two leaders will definitely expand their discussions on boosting their cooperation to reduce their dependence on certain regions for key resources. What about their cooperation on critical minerals?
Yes, as I mentioned, that critical minerals is going to be very key issue for both India and Korea, and for all global leaders around the world, because earlier critical mineral was not seen as a strategic item, but now critical mineral is a strategic item.
Very.
Because those who will have control on critical minerals will dominate technology in the future. Because all critical technology, they need raw materials. So Korea, because it's heavily a tech-oriented country, India is also aiming to become a technological superpower. So without having a secure supply chain of this critical mineral, they cannot go ahead.
Right.
So as I mentioned, that Korea is heavily dependent on China for raw materials, and they need to look alternative. India provide a very good alternative, because recently even Japan is trying to boost relation with India in critical material. Several developments are taking place between India and Japan in that sector. I think Korea also need to boost India-Korea partnership in critical materials, just like what going on between India and Japan.
We do. Now, AI is also expected to be a major topic at the upcoming summit. Professor Kumar, how advanced is India in terms of artificial intelligence? Are they ahead of Seoul?
Yeah, India is doing quite good in AI, and I can say that one industry that India is really doing good is about AI, because if you look at the AI penetration rate, India is among the top country, because fastly adopting AI. Companies are rapidly adopting AI. People are also rapidly adopting AI. And as we also know that Korea also is placing stress on AI industry. One of the key industry that Lee administration is putting a stress is AI industry. So there is huge potential for that. India also is very important in terms of AI talent supply. India is a top AI talent supply, not just for India but for the world. And Korea need this kind of supply as well. So and India, recently one report is also suggesting that India is the most AI ready economy. So various indicators are showing that India is doing quite good in AI, but yes, if there is cooperation between India and Korea, that will be great.
I see. Now, we are seeing President Lee Jae-myung being greeted by Indian officials in New Delhi ahead of summit talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let's continue our conversation on the AI cooperation. Then what kind of cooperation models could emerge between the two sides?
Yeah, there are several issues. As I mentioned, that one of the key area is talent cooperation, because India really has a huge talent. And as I'm sitting in Korea, I see that Korea need talents, because there is a huge shortage of AI human workforce. And since demographic shifts are taking place in Korea, and since Korea is trying to build become AI superpower. So Indian engineers, AI engineers are critical for Korea's realization of AI. Also, they can think about how to boost startup cooperation in AI, because several startups in India, they are doing quite good in AI sector. Korean startups are also good in AI. So I think both countries need to boost AI cooperation, particularly focusing on startup SMEs. That's very, very important. India also have a Startup India mission at the moment.
Oh, really?
Korea also having, Modu Changop. So, so one of the key components is how to encourage individuals to start entrepreneur, especially in AI. So I think there is huge potential between India and Korea, particularly in AI sector.
Indeed, AI is a huge common interest between Seoul and New Delhi, and I'm glad to hear that India is taking AI just as serious as South Korea. Now, Professor Kumar, then defense cooperation. Let's talk about defense cooperation. That's been highlighted as a key area to be discussed. What makes this defense partnership strategically important?
Yes, defense is one of the key area. Both sides is stressing on defense cooperation. From Indian perspective, India is so far India is one of the largest importer of defense equipment. But now India is transforming, trying to transform itself as one of exporter of defense equipment, and that is why one of the key focus of Making India initiative is that how to boost defense production in India. So definitely India is looking Korea to collaborate in boosting India's defense production in India, but also helping India to become one of the exporter in the world, because Korea has its own strength. There was a time when Korea also imported a lot on defense front, but now Korea is one of top exporter at the moment. Even Korea also exported to India as well. So, and Korea also trying to boost its exporting item in India. So definitely there is huge synergy between India and Korea in defense cooperation, and I think this visit will also discuss about in this sector.
That leads to my next question. Then how does that tie into broader regional security, Professor Kumar, security dynamics in the Indo-Pacific?
Indo-Pacific is very important dynamics, and I think if I can say in one word, India is a natural partner for Korea. Because if you look at geopolitical relation of Korea, of course, United States is one of the key ally of, not one of the key, but the most important ally of Korea. But relation is not as it used to be, after Donald Trump, several ups and downs are here, and trust deficit is going on.
Right.
Korea has also, issue with the China. Geopolitical tension issues are there. Korea also have an issue with Japan. Historical issues are there. And other country that is very important in this region is Russia. So Korea has also now issue with Russia because Russia is developing tie with North Korea. So in this region, India is the only country which are really natural for Korea. But on top of this, India itself, India's market power, India's democratic value and principle, India's quest for peace in this region, also making Korea as a natural partner, India as a natural partner for Korea.
I see.
So, in this Indo-Pacific dynamic.
I see. Well, Professor Kumar, we are now seeing President Lee Jae-myung and the First Lady getting in the car, and they will be heading to lay wreath and pay their respect at the Rajat. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Rajghat.
Rajghat.
Yes.
Sorry, excuse my pronunciation.
No.
Already, and their official welcoming ceremony has just ended, and they will carry on their day with summit talks, MOU signing, and a joint press conference later in the day. Professor Kumar, here in Seoul, let's continue our conversation. What stood out to you out of the whole official welcoming ceremony? Was there any particular moment that stood out to you the most?
Yeah, it's great to see. I'm sitting in Seoul and watching development in Delhi. That's really, that's great to see. Yeah.
Well, how would you define a successful summit between the leaders of South Korea and India this time?
Yes, I was also watching yesterday a statement given by President Lee, and that was really very impressive because he wanted to really change the discourse of India-Korea relation. He is going to put a lot of stress on India, and that's very, very important, sign. And I think two leaders are meeting today. That they are going to send a very strong political signal that India and Korea is going to build a relationship. They have shared future and also many things are there. I think. I'm expecting that these political alignment is a great outcome in current scenario. As I mentioned, that current uncertain geopolitical scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
So which sector would it be? Tech, defense, AI, or upgrading SIPA? Which sector do you think we can deliver? We can see the most tangible results in the near future between the two countries' collaboration.
I think the three sectors, of course, you mentioned all are very important, but three sectors, in my opinion, are going to be crucial. One is artificial intelligence. I already highlighted that a huge potential building a strong tie in India and Korea and artificial, because both are stressing on this industry. That for Korea, they want to become the third largest AI power in the world. India is also trying to become a major AI power. So I think there is huge potential. The second is, I think, immediate concern is shipbuilding. I think both countries are, stressing on this one. And Korea is a leader in the shipbuilding. So even Korea is going to help America, United States to, build their shipbuilding. And India at the moment, in the Indo-Pacific, geopolitical dynamic, India is trying to boost its shipbuilding industry. And India is looking Korea to help in this sector. And I think Korea is also ready because several agreements have been signed. So I think this industry is also going to be very important. And third, that's also very important and often unnoticed is content industry. Because currently Korea is taking this industry as a strategic industry. So content is not just about content because they are putting too much stress because it's a growth-oriented industry. It is going to provide job to youth. Similarly, India is also recently announced the orange economy concept and all kind of things that the content will be the key industry for India. And since there is a rise of K-pop and K content in Korea, I think this industry, I think, is going to be one of the key industry in the future
Right.
for India-Korea relations.
As far as I understand, India is one of the biggest consumers in terms of K-pop and K-drama. Indian people love K-related culture, K-related content. Before I let you go, Professor Kumar, looking ahead then, how far can Seoul and New Delhi relations realistically evolve in the near future?
I think I have a great hope for India and Korea, because I mentioned that both are natural partner, and I see that India and Korea relation not just for 1 year, 10 year, but it's a 100-year partnership. Because in Asia, if you look at Asia's matrix, you will not find these kind of matrix anywhere. As I mentioned that Korea has issue with Japan historically, Korea has concern about China, Korea has concern with Russia, United States also declining. So the only two major power in the region are Korea and India, which have no historical issue, no political tensions, and both are a strong economy. Both are trying to build a strong relation, growth-oriented people, peace-loving country. Both are loving each other. People-to-people exchange are becoming stronger. So I think huge potential for India and Korea. If it materializes well, I can say that this is going to be the defining relation in 21st century.
Right, no historical troubles or struggles that need to be entangled. Professor Kumar, thank you for making the time to be with us in the studio today. We appreciate your insight.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We also thank you for staying with us throughout our special coverage of the welcoming ceremony of the E Modi Summit. Goodbye.